Hey guys, welcome back to Pocket Sports. This is the interview you've all been waiting for. This one needs no introduction. He is Australia's greatest ever snooker player and arguably the greatest international player, and that is Neil Robertson. He's got 21 ranking titles, including 6 Triple Crowns. Welcome, mate. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to have a chat to us.
Yeah, no worries. Pleasure to be on.
We'll get right into it, mate. Obviously, all of Australia's they'll be excited to see this. Excited to see you do an interview with us over here at Pocket Sports. We're trying to take the game to the next level here in Australia. So yeah, that'll be something that they're looking forward to. They've been watching all of our stuff, and to have a player such as you over here, it's going to be great for them to see.
Yeah, it's just fantastic what you guys are doing. I think that over the last couple of years, the popularity of 8-ball's really grown, I think, a lot, and I think it all probably started with the lockdown, where a lot of players in Australia started doing these kind of challenges with the tables in their own homes and stuff. And I think that a lot of people really sort of gravitated to that, and I used to always tune into them and watch them, and I think the banter going along with the other players from Australia as well was really good. And then we started to see it sort of take off around the world as well, especially over here in the UK, where a lot of players started doing the same thing. And so I think that starting from that, I think it's created a real sort of burst in excitement and popularity with the sport, and especially to try and take it on and become more professional, and for the top players to be rewarded for how good they are.
Yeah, for sure. And it also gives everyone a chance to play these international players from Australia, from the comfort of their own homes, which is great. I'd like to get to you though, mate. Do you remember the age you started playing pool in general? I do know that you were Australia's youngest ever to make a century break at age 14. Do you remember that moment at all?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it was at Princess, which is sadly no longer a snooker club anymore. Closed down quite a few years ago. But yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, I was 14 at the time, and I think my previous highest break was in tournament anyway was 78. So it was quite a big jump, and I made 110. And all of Australia's best players were there watching it as well. I think that when in tournament play in Australia, when somebody's sort of on about 70 or 80, a lot of people start kind of crowding around the table where there's a big break being made. And so as a 14-year-old, to have a lot of great Australian snooker players that I sort of really looked up to come and sort of watching me try and compile my first century breaking competition was pretty nerve-wracking. So the fact that I was able to hold myself together and pot a lot of really good sort of pressure-coloured balls, actually. My dad said to me, maybe it would have been about I don't know, it would have been quite a few years after that when I turned pro. Anyway, he always felt that he knew that I'd make it because I was able to handle that pressure at that age, at 14. So
yep.
If I could handle that at 14, then he thought I'd be able to handle things throughout my career where you need to pot a lot of big pressure balls. And and so that happened a few years after I started playing. I started playing when I was 11. Sort of like 10 or 11. Mark and I used to go down to Classic Q with our dad. He would play on the 9-ball tables, and so would we, because it was a lot easier to play 9-ball, because obviously the really big pockets, and it's much more fun as a kid to play 9-ball. We also used to like playing 8-ball on the 3/4 size tables, actually, which was much harder, but it was just kind of fun. And probably about a year after that, the person who was selling up his share of Classic Q, my dad sort of jumped at the opportunity to get on board and to go in a club with the other owner was Joe Tront, who sadly is no longer with us. He passed away a few years ago from cancer, unfortunately. But so it was my dad and Joe. They owned the club, and then all of a sudden my dad started running junior competitions every Sunday, and my dad did a lot of really great work getting a lot of juniors playing, because he used to put like leaflets out in letterboxes and sort of to schools and stuff like that, to try and get like a lot of people coming in, and the participation rate was really, really good, and you always used to get more and more players coming each week, and that kind of really started a real sort of a lot of enthusiasm with young sort of pool and snooker players, because the competition that he used to run, it varied in the age groups, but he kind of put us all together, and he used to adjust the handicaps. Like if a 15-year-old was playing like an 11 or 12-year-old, he would adjust the handicap accordingly. And it was a really, really great time to be playing, because you just got a bunch of kids that just love playing the game, and Mark and our interest certainly stemmed from that.
Yeah, yeah. So given at such a young age, obviously your parents, well, your dad, you said, bought into the pool hall. Is that sort of where it all started for you? And given that, whose idea was it for you to actually try your luck overseas? Because I do know you went over there with a few of the players over here, and you were the lucky one to actually make a career out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's when I was around sort of 14 or 15, I kind of really didn't enjoy school that much at all. I kind of struggled to see myself coming out of school and then having a career in something. All I wanted to do was kind of play snooker, and my dad sort of saw that I wasn't really enthusiastic about school at all, and then I just wanted to play snooker, and he suggested that I probably take a year out from school and give snooker a go and see how much I can improve, and then worst case scenario, you can always go back to school. So
yeah.
So I mean, I left school when I was 15. I was getting into a fair bit of trouble at school. Nothing like too major. I was just being a hassle, and pretty unfair on probably the teachers as well, looking back. So yeah, I made a brave decision to leave school at 15 and see how I could go on the Australian circuit and that, and had a lot of mixed results. Still kept dominating the junior scene and that, and kept improving a lot as a player. But didn't really get the results I was kind of really searching for on the Australian circuit until I was about sort of how old was I? I was 17 when the Oceania Snooker Championships was held at Q Sports, and by then my dad had got out of Classic Q, and so I used to play at Q Sports every day at Knox. And when I was 17, the Oceania Championships was held there, and the 4 semi-finalists got a pro card, like a tour card, and that was my first experience in qualifying for something in England. I was actually 16, sorry. I remember beating Robbie Favari in the quarterfinals and losing to Sean Butt in the semi-finals. And Sean ended up beating Joel Younger in the final, who's obviously playing in the Pocket Series as well. So. Yeah, it was a great time to be playing snooker back then in Australia, because we had a lot of fantastic players. And so the first time we actually did go over together was in 1998, and it was myself, Sean, Joel, and Steve Misford. And then I had a few years sort of getting on the tour, falling off the tour. Wasn't quite sort of good enough, and I used to try and fly back and forth from Australia, which is a disaster, because you have to be living over in the UK, so you're not recovering from jet lag. Playing with all the better players over here as well to improve. So I felt as though when I was like 18 or 19, I couldn't really improve much more as a player, and I needed to move over to the UK. And it wasn't until 2003 when I won the World Under-21s in New Zealand. Joel Younger was already professional on the tour. He was on it the previous season and did very well to keep his place. Steve Misford won the World Amateur Championships in 2002, so that then qualified him for the tour in 2003. So we all went over together, being really good friends, and we rented a house in Cambridge, which was literally like right next door to the club. So we all settled in pretty well there, and like you say, I was the fortunate one who kind of who played well and kept my place, and then everything kind of everything was roadmap from then out.
Yep, so plenty of years on now. You've now got 21 ranking titles. I believe it's 7th of all time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it would be Ronnie number 1, Hendry Higgins 2, something like that. I think Hendry 2, Higgins 3, I think. Then Steve Davis, uh, Mark Williams, Judd Trump, and me. I think.
Yeah,
So,
yep.
yeah,
So
I think I've gone ahead of Selby. I think I've gone ahead of Selby
yes,
now.
yes, definitely jumped ahead, and I think you're only just one behind Judd Trump at the moment. Speaking of which, we've seen we've seen 2 other players of recent times try their luck in different codes, and that is Judd Trump with 9-ball in the US Open and Mark Selby with 8-ball in Ultimate Pool. What are your thoughts on that, and do you think that's something that you could ever do sometime in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always love to kind of play in something with Mark. I think, like in a team format or something. I think I was pretty close to being able to play for the Australian 8-ball side. I was invited one year, but the only issue was that was the only time that I could actually be in Australia during my off season, so I couldn't really stay back over in the UK, because then I wouldn't have been able to get home and spend time obviously with mum and dad and that, and
Yep.
other family and close friends. So yeah, I mean, I used to play 8-ball loads. Like, I used to really enjoy 8-ball. I loved playing the old rules, actually, where you could sort of tuck up and roll up behind, and so I was very much brought up in the old school rules where people like I think Jim Reen and Dave Collins and Steve Gray and a lot of great players. I think Mark Williams. Like, yeah, there's a lot of really good 8-ball players back then. Tactically, who were really, really good. And then obviously the world rules came out, I think would have been around 95, 96, and then that kind of changed to be a bit more of the aggressive approach, and probably changed the game for the better. I think that a lot of players used to just kind of like roll up behind, almost let some pot out to the last red or something, and then just start rolling up behind the balls, and then constantly having 2 shots all the time. So I think it's changed. The sport's definitely changed for the better there. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to. I'd still like. I think going back home. I think next time I come home, I'd like to maybe play in a couple of events or something, or just have some fun. Playing with Mark and Scary and all the other boys, who would be really good. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that, actually, because I do miss playing a bit of 8-ball. I used to play an awful lot. So yeah, it'd be nice. And then I think everyone always asks, actually, who would win out of me and Mark. So we'll have to sort of see.
Yeah, that question was that question was definitely coming. I did ask Mark, and I'm pretty sure you probably would have seen it in his video that he said right now he's going to beat you, but you give yourself just 2 weeks, I think it was, and you'd knock him off in no time.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. Mark's a great player. I mean, I always follow him whenever he's playing, and when he was like playing like the big guns tournaments and all that sort of stuff, I'd always like get up in the morning and watch him, and he's done really, really well. I think he's a terrific player, and was an outstanding captain when Australia won the world team championships as well. Really, really proud of him there. I drove up to Blackpool to watch the boys play, and to see all of them actually, like, that generation of players are really great players in Australia, and to see them fittingly win, the world championships was fantastic. And super proud moment, actually, for me, and also my dad, who was also there. Seeing both his sons sort of become world champions, I think it was really special. And it was nice that I could be there for that moment. But I think I don't know who would win. I think a key for me would probably be the break, right? I think that if I could get the break really good, then I could pot out a lot, and then it would take me a little while to adjust back to the small white as well.
Yep.
Because I haven't played with the small white for a very long time. But it'd be good fun though, and I'm sure that we'll have a match and probably stream it or something like that. It'll be pretty cool.
Yep. So speaking of, we know that you're a snooker player, obviously Australia's greatest. Have you been too familiar with the international rules which are coming in? And speaking of, they're going to be the rules used in our Pro Series. Are you familiar with them at all?
Is that similar to the like the black ball rules or something?
Yeah, similar to the black ball rules. So it's the rules that the Ultimate Pool are using at the moment, where there is actually no two shots. You get one shot anywhere on the table. So it basically stops all that laying up sort of stuff, and you can stop.
Oh, it's a ball in hand, is it?
Ball in hand anywhere on the table.
And you can pot your opponent's ball if you hit yours first or something?
Yeah,
right?
Skill shot. So you can pot that as well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, that's very exciting, and then it adds a whole new element to the game as well. I think that a lot of players, it will take them out of their kind of comfort zone, like you say, with sort of like covering pockets and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden players will have to learn new shots to get out of trouble and to tactically get the advantage, and who can be the best player as well. And I think it'll be fantastic to watch. It will certainly be really exciting, to see that as well.
Yeah. And speaking of Mark, he's about to, less than a week away now from the Pro Series. He's about to step into arguably the most important tournament to date. What are your thoughts on that? We do know that you do know most of the 8 players in it. Without being biased, not just the first championship 1 and 2, who do you think will win the whole series?
The whole series? I mean, what's the actual format? So it's 8 players. Do they all play each other once, or how does that work?
So basically, on the Sunday, it is a race to 8 single elimination, and then on the Monday, it's a race to 6 single elimination as well. So we actually got 2 championships in the one weekend.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say because I haven't really seen all the guys play under this format. I think that, over the years, I think different formats would probably suit different players. I think that Joel Younger probably tactically the best, and you got people like Ben Noonan and Rusty who are fantastic kind of shot makers and can pull out. They can be sort of like dead and buried, and all of a sudden 2 shots later they're favourite to win the frame. So, and Mark's kind of like a hybrid of like all of those facets of the game. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to see Mark win, of course. I think that I'd like to see whoever plays the best in the whole event. You'd like to see the person most deserving, but obviously I'll be sort of going for Mark all the way. So I'm hoping that he can pick up the win.
Yeah. So back to yourself with snooker. We know you're a family man, a couple of kids. Little Alexander's enjoying some soccer at the moment.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
How do you manage to balance your home life and then obviously keep it such a high standard of snooker? How many hours do you practice for a day when you're practicing?
I mean, the hours I practice in a day varies because it depends if I'm if I have a couple of weeks to build myself up for a tournament, or if I'm like it is now where I won the Masters and then have a few days off and then practice for a few days because I fly out for the German Masters tomorrow. So it just depends. I mean, if I'm just practicing by myself for a few days, getting ready for a tournament, it's just only sort of not that much, just an hour and a half, 2 hours max, really. Just you're just sort of like fine tuning everything. You're not really trying to put yourself through the mental barriers of practicing for like 4 or 5 hours solo to kind of increase your concentration levels, which is what you do when you do solo. You sort of push yourself through the barriers to make sure you can sustain a really high quality standard of snooker in a match, which you need to be able to do for probably about an hour and a half or 2 hours at a time after intervals. If I'm playing with someone like Joe Perry, for example, then yeah, I'll play Joe for like 5 hours or something. We'll play like sort of 3 or 4 best of 9, something like that. It just all depends. I mean, sometimes I have every intention to only practice for an hour and a half, and then sometimes I'm practicing for 3 hours if I don't think something is right technically and I want to make sure everything is perfect. But generally these days, and most of the other top players will say the same, is that we actually practice less than what we ever used to because we're playing in so many tournaments. So we're playing in tournaments all the time, so you need to find the right balance of giving yourself enough rest, enough mental rest in between tournaments, and doing enough practice as well that where you're not being burnt out. And I think I've got the perfect mix really with the amount of practice that I do and also with the amount of tournaments that I play in. I've played in the least amount of tournaments out of anyone on the tour this year, but I've won the most tournaments. So winning the Masters, winning the English Open, and also the final of the Grand Prix. So it's quite a brave thing to do, to pick and choose your events. But I think that I'm at the stage in my career where I kind of I'm in a position where I can actually do that. I'm not chasing ranking points or anything like that. I'm trying to sort of build myself up for the biggest events, and that's what I plan on doing, sort of leading into the World Championships and the Tour Championships.
Yeah. And speaking of that last match, I believe you beat Barry Hawkins 10-4, correct?
Yep.
But that's not the one everyone was talking about here in Australia. It was actually the match before in the deciding frame. It was all over the 8-ball pages here in Australia. The deciding frame, I believe it was Mark Williams. Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course. I'll never be able to forget it. I think, funnily enough, actually, I spoke about it in my post-match interview that when the red and the black were almost like pretty much touching ball, I actually thought I had a huge advantage because of my 8-ball background with playing with the old rules and even world rules, when that situation would come up an awful lot in matches. And so I always had the upper hand, and I always kept the upper hand. And I felt as though that 8-ball experience for sure definitely helped me a load, because I knew exactly what to do in every situation to make sure I'd always get the upper hand. And I mean, to need 2 snookers though in a 5-all in the semis, you're just coming back to the table really to kind of give it a good go and see what will happen. You never know. And I got 1 snooker, and then Mark ended up playing an unbelievable shot where he actually had to hit the jaw of the corner pocket to double kiss the red away from the black. It was one of the best shots I've ever seen. But then later on in the frame, I got a decent snooker on the yellow, and he chose to try and swerve around the green instead of coming off the side cushion, where he probably would have left the yellow safe even if he'd missed it. So for him to play it the way he did was really risky, and I pulled off a really good pressure clearance, especially the green and brown were fantastic pressure shots.
Yeah. And how do you actually do you get nervous? Because it doesn't look like you do. If you do, how do you stay composed in each shot?
Yeah, everyone gets nervous. Every top player gets nervous and feels the pressure and stuff like that. Absolutely, any sportsman does. It's just how you kind of control it. I think the 10-20 minutes just before you go out to actually play are probably the worst, because you don't know kind of how you're going to play. You don't know what the result's going to be, and it's kind of like everything in that moment is out of your control because you're not actually playing the game. So that's probably the trickiest part, is to just make sure you're mentally prepared in that moment. And if you're nervous, that's fine. I remember Michael Johnson, the great American Olympian, the 200, 400 meter specialist. He said before every race, he said if he wasn't nervous, he was worried, because it meant he wasn't focused. So when I heard him do that interview, probably it was quite some time ago now, maybe like 12, 13 years ago. Ever since then, whenever I've been nervous, I've always thought about what Michael Johnson says, and that nerves are a good sign. It means that you're focused, means that you're ready. You want to start and start getting involved in the competition. So I think that's a very good thing. And pressure is different. I think pressure is like something that you create yourself, and something that maybe an opponent can apply to you. And pressure is how you handle a situation and what you actually think about it. I think that breathing is super important. Deep breaths, constant breathing. I spoke to a sports psychologist who says that as soon as you stop breathing properly, your brain starts to panic and then has a reaction similar to if you're being strangled. And that's why you see a lot of players, in particular with snooker, and that they start sort of really fiddling around with their bow tie around the collar, because they're starting to swell up around their neck. That's always a good sign that you've got someone. So just stuff like that, I think that reading into sports psychology is really good. Just reading a few books here and there is just so you have a better understanding of how the body works and stuff like that. And but I'd say that deep breaths and preparation is huge as well. If you're playing a match and it's not going well, then as long as you've prepared as well as you can for the match, then you can tell yourself that, and then that can also really relax you, because you're like, yeah, you know what, like I've done everything possible. Maybe I'm just having a bad day. Let's just try and make the best out of it. So there's lots of little tricks you can do with your mind to convince yourself that it's not the end of the world, that you're playing a match of snooker or match of pool.
Yeah. I don't want to keep you too much longer, mate. I know you do have a busy schedule
That's
yourself.
Right, don't mind.
I do just have one more question in regards to any up-and-coming player, not just here in Australia, but here anywhere in the world. Do you have any advice you can give to them, knowing where you came from to where you are now?
Any advice? I would say, look, you have to always trust yourself in what you actually believe in, and don't let anyone deter you from your dreams and your goals of what you want to achieve in life, whatever it may be. And that's the most important thing, is to work really hard and really believe in yourself. Don't let anyone kind of put you down. And I had that throughout my whole career, especially in Australia, saying, like, no one's ever done it from Australia before. No one's ever been world champion. No one's ever kind of had a sustained long career from Australia. It's too hard, other side of the world. And I never listened to any of that, because it was always my dream to become, a great snooker player. So as long as you really believe it and you're putting the work in, then yeah, you have to just keep pursuing your dreams and don't let anyone sort of put you off that.
Beautiful. Well, there you go, guys. You've heard it here first from Neil Robertson. Thank you again, mate. We appreciate your time.
All right, cheers. Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks, guys.